What's going on, guys? Welcome back into the channel. In today's video, we're going to be going over my top 5 teams for franchise mode in Madden 23 now that the Week 1 rosters have updated. The Week 1 rosters are not a huge change from the initial drop of the game. As usual, EA has kind of dropped the ball on their ratings adjustments. They've left many ratings out. They've left people desiring better as usual. So unfortunately, not much of a difference from when the game first released. However, there is certainly a need to go over some of the better teams to utilize within franchise mode, including rebuilds, as well as teams that are going to be just generally fun to utilize within the game. So I am going to view this as more of a rebuild type of a special, a video where we're going over my top 10 buildable teams within the game, teams that you're going to want to utilize to keep Madden fresh and alive this year, despite their very bad roster. There's one thing that we have to talk about first and foremost, and that is the difference between the game within Play Now, the difference between the rosters at the main menu, and what it looks like within franchise mode. Because you may be deceived if you try to decide on what team you're going to be or what teams you're looking at by simply looking at them here on the Play Now menu or looking at them on the base roster. You're going to be a little bit deceived, and the reason for that is these ratings change from actual roster and Play Now mode to franchise mode. And if you haven't been aware of that, that's something that happens every single year. So you might end up with a team like the 49ers, for example, that show as an 86 overall. But on the very same roster, when you get into franchise mode, as you can see there on the right-hand side of the screen, the team is not truly an 86 overall. So the 49ers here, for example, are only an 83 offense, 84 defense, and 83 overall. Why there is this big discrepancy between the main roster of the game and what you see in Play Now versus what you actually see in franchise mode is that when they create the rosters, they just simply don't care about franchise mode. It's the sad truth of the fact. They're making the rosters for Play Now for head-to-head online gameplay and things of that nature. They do not consider franchise mode when they make the rosters. If they did, then we wouldn't see so many of the bizarre ratings that they have within the game and so many of the issues that they have within the game. Instead, they want you to have a good online head-to-head experience with these teams as opposed to integrating that roster within franchise mode in a way that makes sense. So we have to color our lens a little bit when we're taking a look at the teams within franchise mode and understand just because a team looks a certain way on the main roster and just because they look a certain way in Play Now or online head-to-head does not mean that that's how they're going to look in franchise mode, at least in terms of the numbers. So getting right into it though, there is an easy way for you guys to see what the teams actually look like in the numbers in franchise mode, and I've gone over this in previous videos, but it's very pertinent for me to show you how to do this jumping into this video before we talk about any teams. So real quick, all you have to do in franchise mode is go all the way over to the options menu, go down to retire, and click create a new character. What happens whenever you do this is it'll allow you to pick a new team, and this is going to show you the up-to-date information on these teams. You'll be able to see the rating breakdown from offense, defense, and team overall. So as you can see, I can scroll through here and get the accurate ratings for these teams as we scroll through the roster and get all of the information that I need, including the top players for those teams and all of that type of stuff. So without further ado, let's jump into some teams that I feel are going to be really fun for you guys to play as and try to build within Madden 23. The first team that I'm going to put on this list is actually the Minnesota Vikings. Now, this is a team that the NFL world has a mixed view on. A lot of people view this team as a potential competitor. I view this team as a bottom feeder type of a team, to be quite honest with you guys. They have a couple of really good players, but a guy like Dalvin Cook who is injury prone. They have a quarterback that is not necessarily consistent in Kirk Cousins. He can be elite, but he can be mediocre at times. And so this is a team that actually needs a lot of pieces in a lot of important places. You're very quickly going to need to go out and find a replacement for Kirk Cousins. That is a big one. You have a couple of running backs in place that have potential upside. You don't have to do a whole lot there, and you have skill guys in place that could be potentially really good with guys like Justin Jefferson and Jalen Reagor. But with this team, the interesting thing is you also have a lot of veteran trade pieces. You can get draft capital back for a guy like an Adam Thielen, or you might even be able to trade a guy like Harrison Smith. Very high value players within franchise mode that teams that are competitive would be loving to have on their team as a plug and play type of a piece that's going to make a difference for them. But like I mentioned before, you have a lot of young, talented players here to build around, and those veteran trade pieces that I think are going to get you some pretty good draft capital. I really like the potential of a Minnesota Vikings kind of rebuild or retooling, I would say, within Madden 23. My favorite candidate for a rebuild, however, in this game, or a franchise in general in Madden 23, is going to be the Seattle Seahawks. They're a team that is fairly young for the most part. You look at all their top players and they're under the age of 30. If we look at this first page of players, they're all under the age of 30, and you have some crazy good players that are young on this list, like guys like DK Metcalf and Jordan Brooks and whatnot, that are very impactful players that are cornerstones to build around. And you also have Jamal Adams, who I think might be a little bit overrated here, but nonetheless, you're going to have key contributors here. You have a lot of the pillars in place for a good rebuild. You just have to fill a ton of gaps with this team. You have to figure out what you're going to do at the quarterback position. What I recommend personally doing at the quarterback position is going over to the Ravens and seeing what you can get for Tyler Huntley and building him up into your future star quarterback. Other than that, though, the Seahawks need some offensive line help. They have a decent supporting cast of skill players at wide receiver and young guys at running back. They just need some offensive line help as well as some defensive line help, and they've already drafted a couple of players to fill in some of those gaps. So it's a team that does need quite a bit of help across the board, but you're going to have a lot of fun building this team up. This is going to be a true building process, and it's not necessarily a rebuild from the perspective of they've already gone through the process of trading the old players away. So one of your major steps is already done for you. Now you just need to do the building up process to take this team to a competitive level. Believe it or not, my third entry on this list is going to be the Detroit Lions, and this team is probably on the list for rebuild candidates every single year because of the nature of the team. They are just not successful over and over and over again. But what they have done in recent years is they've done a really nice job of drafting crucial pieces that are going to be fun to build around. If you want a potential run-first team, you might want to take a look at the Detroit Lions. The reason for that is their top 4 players are all fantastic future superstars and players that are going to be tremendous in a run-first offense. TJ Hawkinson is a massive contributor at tight end, an 89 overall already. Frank Ragnow is the best center in the league, if not one of the best centers in the league, and they're disrespecting him a little bit with his rating, in my opinion. Sewell at right tackle is a plug-and-play superstar. He is fantastic already, and they drafted DeAndre Swift, who I can vouch for is incredibly fun to utilize within the game. Beyond those top players, however, you're not going to have a whole lot of talent. You're going to have players that you need to develop up. You do have some key role players like DJ Chark and whatnot, but it is a very, very difficult rebuild outside of some of those skill guys, like I said, with the speedsters out there in DJ Chark and the young Jameson Williams, who is going to be very nice once he's back from injury. Moving on to the number 4 spot is the Atlanta Falcons. The Atlanta Falcons are a team that are going to take a lot of effort to get back to a competitive level, but you have one of the most exciting prospects in the game on the team in Kyle Pitts. That in and of itself makes it worth it to play an Atlanta Falcons franchise. But besides that, they already have some very interesting prospects on the roster, chief among them being Desmond Ridder. I really like the ratings that they've given him this year in Madden. He is certainly overrated in my opinion, But he starts off as a super athlete. He's absolutely fantastic in that regard. He's a little bit low on the agility side of things. He's not going to be able to escape quite as much as people might want him to, but a very buildable player out here that can tag team with Kyle Pitts and those young guys that they have in the receiving core like Bryan Edwards and Drake London. And that makes for some potentially exciting future for this team. There's a whole lot to be done here, and there are some veteran players that are going to be on their way out. You're talking about a lot of veteran guys that are in their mid-30s or close to their 30s that are going to be on the way out in the near future, and that's going to get you maybe a little bit of draft capital back in return, but again, you have those corner pieces to build around in some crucial areas. Number 5 on my list is going to be the Miami Dolphins, and this one's a pretty clear-cut reason to want to play as them this year. They've added incredible players like Tyreek Hill to the roster. Jalen Waddle has a ton of athleticism. They're going to be super interesting to play with. They're kind of cheesy, if I'm being honest with you. But the reason that I want to give you for a Miami Dolphins franchise this year, and this is not necessarily a rebuild or even a retooling at this point, this is a we're trying to be competitive at this point type of a franchise, is that Tua Tagovailoa is one of the only left-handed quarterbacks in the game, and I personally like the challenge of a left-handed quarterback. Not a lot of people like to utilize left-handed quarterbacks within the game, but if you're looking for something unique that is not going to be that hard for you to overcome, but is still a challenge, then take the Miami Dolphins and try to turn Tua Tagovailoa into a star quarterback. You're going to have a lot of weapons and pieces on this team, so you're going to be competitive regardless, but you're going to have to overcome that challenge of not being used to a lefty quarterback. So I do hope that you guys enjoyed this video. Those are my 5 top teams to play franchise mode with in Madden 23. Some interesting picks here, not necessarily teams that a lot of other people have said in their videos, but teams that I think are very interesting for my own reasons. I hope that you guys will give some of these teams a try, and if you are playing a franchise with one of these teams already, let me know down in the comment section how that's going, or if you plan to play with one of these teams, let me know that as well. I also want to hear what team you do plan to play as, so if it isn't one of these teams on this list, let me know who you're playing as in franchise mode this year and how that's going. I want to hear all that down in the comment section below. As always, please leave a like on the video, subscribe to the channel if you're new around here, and as always, I'll see you guys in the next video, and I hope you have a good one.